Close your eyes for a moment and imagine you have a store generating millions per month. Millions. Your life has changed forever, you think to yourself. But then your accountant gives you a call and says, "You made a 50K loss this month overall." Your world shatters. Now, this may not seem like a likely scenario, but in business, it happens way more than you think because some companies don't think about profit margins or scale for different North Star metrics altogether. My name is Arsalan, founder of AKM, and we help scale, grow, and invest in the e-commerce companies that we love. In this video, I'll be covering the top 3 things that every e-commerce business owner need to know about profit margins, even those using dropshipping, plus how to use this information to your advantage to grow more effectively. No matter what kind of products you sell online, every e-commerce business has one clear goal: to maximize cash flow and boost profit margins whilst scaling. However, for new business owners and entrepreneurs, understanding what constitutes a good profit margin can be challenging, and not just new. Some people may even benefit from this even after being in business for well over a year or 2 years. That's because determining a good profit margin really comes down to the structure of your business and your long-term goals for scale. For example, if you're happy with your current cash flow, then achieving a profit margin that covers your operating expenses might be a good place to start. On the other hand, if your goal is to scale your online store and to grow your operation, you need a strategic plan that allows you to expand your profit margins to meet your growth needs feasibly. Not only that, but there are actually multiple types of profit margins that store owners need to be concerned with. And if you're not focusing on the right metrics, you could be wasting your resources by trying to increase the wrong margins. So understanding different profit margins, what they mean for your business, and how to improve them is a crucial component of running your online stores. With that being said, I'll be covering what is a profit margin in the first place, what are the different types of product margins that you need to be considering and thinking about, such as gross profit margins, operating margins, net profit margins. Pro tip, also understanding a little bit more about using a P&L statement to your advantage whilst doing this. And then number 3, how to find a good Shopify product margin. I'll be diving a little bit into ad spend, cost of delivery, overall profit for those products, operational expenses, what you should be looking for, what are the benchmarks, and how can then you use that information for your own brand. With that out the way, number 1, what is a profit margin? Whether you've studied business in school or you're a self-made entrepreneur, you probably have a general idea of what profit margin means for your business. But if you want to get ahead of the competition, having an in-depth understanding of this metric can give you a huge advantage when it comes to your strategies and how you scale. So what is profit margin anyway? Simply put, a profit margin is a way to measure how much profitability a particular product or service has for your business. Unlike other metrics like total revenue or net sales, profit margins don't use specific dollar amounts. Instead, the metric is shown using percentages in most cases. So the higher your percentage is, the more profitable your business becomes. Who would have thought? And with that in mind, there are some types of businesses that naturally have higher profit margins than others. In most cases, businesses with lower operating costs and higher consumer demand will have higher profit margins naturally than the businesses with extensive costs and a great deal of competition. In the retail world, businesses with high profit margins include things like jewelry, apparel, luxury vehicles, SaaS or software, video games, medical equipment, supplements/pharmaceuticals. And these products often have a high demand for consumers and can typically reduce their costs in the manufacturing process because of this. On the other hand of the spectrum is businesses with lower margins, which might include things like restaurants, transportation systems such as airlines, taxis, etc., agricultural goods, and so forth. All of these businesses involve a great deal of manual labor, which equates to higher operating expenses for the owners and the companies. And they're also subjective to very strict regulations, which also drive the cost up even higher. And similarly, in the world of e-commerce, we also have certain types of businesses that produce higher profit margin than others and lower margins. And in our experience, the most profitable online businesses tend to be consumer packaged goods, or CPGs, are products that are consumed by the customer on a daily basis or a weekly basis and so forth. This tends to make them more profitable since customers have to regularly purchase those products, and most of the time these products can be produced for very low costs. Examples of very profitable CPGs include things like skincare products, supplements, makeup, and other household products. Another type of e-commerce business that tends to be highly profitable is subscription-based services. Like the previous examples, these businesses have relatively low operating costs and staffing needs because they operate completely online in the first place. Some examples of this might include things like SaaS tools, online courses, recurring memberships, subscriptions to your favorite supplement or to your coffee brand, etc. and so forth. Now, my second point here is, what are the different types of profit margins? It's not only important to know that not all profit margins are created equally. In fact, there are 3 types of product margins that can give you a unique perspective into the profitability of your business, especially for small business owners or businesses that are on their way to scaling. Number 1 of that being gross profit margin. Now, this type of profit margin is used to measure the difference between the total sales revenue of a product and its adjacent cost of goods / cost of delivery and so forth. Depending on the type of products your e-com store is selling, some of the COGS included in your gross profit margin calculations might be things such as your raw materials, your manual labor, your packaging costs. Essentially, gross profit margins are a good way to determine the profitability of each product that you offer, since the cost of production can vary greatly between different goods or different SKUs. For instance, the cost of producing surgical equipment is very different than the cost associated with producing new software products. Either way, you'll want to use gross profit margins to make a strategic decision about the particular items in your online store. This is also a great tool when developing pricing strategies and allowing you to create more profitability by increasing the selling price of certain products that you know might be converting better than others. Now, to find your gross profit margin for a product, start by calculating the cost of goods of that product and subtracting it from your net sales. Next, take that number that you found and divide it by the original net sales total. This will leave you with a percentage of your gross profit margin. Next up on the screen, you'll see operating margin and how we look at that. Similarly to gross profit margins, operating margins also help to measure the difference between the cost of producing a particular product and the net revenue you receive in return. However, operating margins also include fixed costs in the equation, meaning that the cost of goods for this particular profit margin are much higher. Fixed costs include the things that you need to run your business, even if they're not related to the product of one singular item. For example, some fixed costs might be the rent for your office space or for your warehouse, the utilities that you have to buy, your salaries for employees and even for yourself, warehousing costs, and anything else related that is fixed on a monthly basis. Most of the time, operating margins are used to determine how strong your profitability is in comparison to the other online businesses selling similar products. So if your operating margins are significantly higher than one of your top competitors, you know you're a business that operates effectively. If not, you may want to find new ways to eliminate unwanted expenses as you grow. To find your operating profit margin, follow the same formula as gross profit margin, but with the inclusion of your fixed cost into your cost of goods. Next up is net profit margin. Again, image on the screen to distinguish how we look at this, but if you want to capture a holistic picture of your store's profits and overall financial well-being, net profit margins are the best option. This is also the profit margin that I personally think matters the most. This profit margin includes all of your production and your fixed costs from the first 2 profit margins, with the addition of other business expenses that might have been missed. By that, it might be common things like taxes, interest, depreciation that might have happened within the time frame or within the cash flow window you're measuring. Simply put, your net profit margin is the difference between your net income and the total sales of your store. While this might not help you create specific strategies for products, net profit margins are a great tool to use when speaking with potential investors, other business partners, and just deciding how efficient you are as a business. That's because this profit margin provides a snapshot into the profitability that can be achieved using the previous formulas that I've already talked about. To find your net profit margin, you start by determining your entire business company's net income, which is the profit that's left after all expenses are subtracted from your gross income, and then you can take this result and divide it by the total sales of your business. Finally, take this number, multiply it by 100, and that's your profit margin as a percentage. And now hopefully you have a little bit more insight into the different types of profit margins. Bonus tip, use P&L statements to your advantage. Now, many business owners think that looking at the profit margin alone is enough to make strategic decisions about their e-commerce operations. However, without connecting your profit margin to your profit and loss statement, you could be missing out major insights into your business day in, day out expenses that could drastically improve your profits. Now, for a P&L sheet and really tracking your finances, we include these 3 categories. Number 1 is your gross sales divided by your operating revenue. There's an image on the screen which dictates exactly what we look at in these cases. Now, you can think of your gross sales or operating revenue as the most integral component of your P&L statement, which is why it usually appears on the top line. Now, operating revenue shows the amount of money made from a business's main operations, margins, which for e-commerce businesses means selling goods online. Now keep in mind, this also includes discounts, returns, refunds, so it might offer a slightly distorted view of your overall growing potential. That's why we also use different revenue definitions when looking at these variables. There's order revenue, which is total sales plus your returns. This definition is mostly used for marketing departments because returns are not typically a reflection of ineffective marketing. Total sales is another one, which is order revenue minus your returns. Conversely, this is a more accurate definition for the business end of your operation, since it shows you how much returns or refunds might be impacting your revenue. And the last part, net sales, which is your total sales minus the shipping minus the taxes. Now for e-commerce businesses, this is by far the most important definition of revenue, and it should always align with your net sales number in the Shopify store. If it doesn't, you're tracking something wrong. The second part is variable cost. Unlike fixed cost, variable costs may fluctuate based on your company's operations. In other words, your variable cost will be much greater when there's an increase in demand for your products, leading to more production. On the other hand, it will decrease when you see a drop in consumer demand for your product or for your brand or just in the market in general. Some of the most common variable costs that you will see as you learn more and more about finances will be the following: cost of goods, or COGS, C-O-G. As we mentioned before, COGS are the expenses that are most directly related to the production of a particular product or service that are used to determine the product price at any given time. After that, you have forward shipping. This includes all costs associated with getting a product out of the warehouse and to your customer's doorstep. And after that, you have the merchant or payment processing fees. This is the weighted average of the fees collected by the payment processors that you use, such as PayPal, Stripe, Shopify Payments, and all of the platforms will have it, such as Shopify, Amazon, and so forth. And number 3 on the list is your gross profit. Gross profit shows you the amount of money that you've earned before any deductions, making it extremely useful when creating pricing strategies for your product. For example, you might decide to mark up your product if you see an opportunity for growth from this number. Or oppositely, if you have excess inventory or you need to sell product quickly and get it out of the warehouse, you might determine that based on profit margin to discount that particular SKU. Additionally, gross profits can be used to determine how well your products are performing compared to the industry averages of e-commerce. Although, regardless of whatever type of goods you're selling, 70% is considered a very healthy gross profit margin. And number 4, ad spend. Now, your ad spend includes collective costs associated with your marketing budget, including running ads on social media platforms like Facebook, TikTok, Google, optimizing your e-commerce store for SEO purposes, and more. And lastly, one of the final lines that you'll have on your P&L is your profit, or your overall profit. Now, typically it's referred to as your bottom line. On average, a good ratio for an e-commerce business to have would be 4:1 for revenue to profit. And ultimately, connecting your profit margin to your P&L statement allows you to make an insight gain from your calculations and create effective strategies, not only in marketing, but also to maximize your profit margins. For example, if you find that you aren't receiving good ROAS from your marketing efforts, you could recalibrate your marketing budget to align with your goals. It also allows you to connect the dots between all of the key components within your e-commerce metrics. For example, looking at the conversion rate of your ad campaigns and also comparing it directly to the average order value that you get on your store or on your brand, because they are going to be correlated. And of course, this is just a very general view of how a P&L statement can be leveraged to improve the profitability of your store. But that being said, for those of you who have made it this far into the video, if you do want to take a deeper dive, I've included a template in the description which talks a lot more about how the P&L variables can affect your store and a bit more into how to read that and make decisions. And the last part of this video is how to find a good Shopify product margin. No matter what type of products you sell on your e-commerce store, there are a few main targets that you should be trying to maintain for a good profit margin. That being said, it's important to remember that these targets are specific to your business needs and businesses that are earning less than $10 million in revenue per year. Obviously, once you pass this 10 million threshold, your targets will change drastically. The way that you scale will change, and your strategies and factors like brand equity will also have to come into the equation. But until that point, and until you scale to that store, this is the model that we recommend you use to track profit margins and achieve your long-term growth goals. Ad spend, 40%. Now first, look at your ad spend, which should account for 40% of your total revenue. Now that might seem high, but for businesses in that less than 10 million range, this is a good spot. This includes all your costs associated with your marketing efforts, including direct-to-consumer advertising, influencer marketing, and so forth. Cost of delivery, 35%. Next, you have the cost of delivery, which is the cost to get your product to your customer's doorstep. After that, profit, at least 15%. Now this model, profit refers to specifically your net profit, which we talked about earlier. And typically we want it to account for at least 15%. And OPEX, 10%, which is your operating expenses, which include all of the expenses that your business needs to run. And that pretty much covers this video. I'll be doing a part 2 where I'll dive into further on how you can use these metrics to then increase your profit margins. But until then, I hope you found this valuable. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a comment down below. If you liked it, make sure you go ahead and leave a like. And if you have any questions, also let us know and do the same. My name is Arsalan, and I'll see you guys in the next video.